Whenever things got rough, I always remember what my father used to say.
Running a business does test a man, my son. There are ups and downs, glorious highs, and sometimes a low that leaves you feeling defeated.
The character of a man and the character of a business are not very different, are they?
Yes, but when the chips are down, we must stand up, dust ourselves off, and motor on.
Volatility. It's a funny thing. It makes you question yourself and wonder if you've made all the right decisions.
Sure, you can question some of your decisions, but stay steadfast on your goals.
Dad always said, there are no shortcuts and no quick profits.
There are no free lunches, are there? There is only one
Right way.
At PPFAS, we think like Rahul and his father. That volatility is a fact of running a business. And buying equity shares is like owning a part of that business. We use value investing principles to manage your money. This means we invest in the right businesses at reasonable prices and for a longer term.
PPFAS Mutual Fund. There's only one right way. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Hi everyone, good evening. Hello to everyone in Delhi and Bangalore as well. So any guesses? Yeah, guessed it right in the first attempt. So welcome everyone, and let's learn about logistics sector and discuss the merits and how the sector will perform going ahead. Just a brief idea, a top-down view of logistics. So as per government stats, logistics is 14% of India's GDP in terms of what amount is spent as a percent of GDP. And they give a number called 160 billion. That is the revenue that logistics companies earn. I'm assuming that this number is the organized sector of the industry, which means that if you take that number as sacrosanct, that number is 42% of organized market. So the remaining market will be unorganized, and which is quite a large market if you think about an organized sector. If you look at some pockets of logistics, they are growing at 10%, which are more traditional in nature, which are in line with the GDP growth in many years. But there are some niche pockets which are actually growing much faster, and we'll see which ones are those. So after agriculture, textile, I think logistics is one of the largest employer. I think the government stats say that about 2.2 crore people work in this sector. And I'm assuming this will be like everybody from the loader or a warehouse personnel right up to the CEO of a logistics company. So it's quite a large number of people that is required. It's a manpower heavy, manpower intensive business. Recently, logistics was given an infrastructure status, which means that any funding requirements that the companies might have or any infra spending that has to be done, there will be a little ease of raising money in that situation, at least from international as well as local institutions. And this number is actually astounding, but considering India's growth and size, it doesn't surprise me much. In the 4 years of FY14 and FY18, there was about 1 lakh crores of FDI in logistics sector. What I found even more interesting is that from this year to date till June 2019, about $1 billion have already been invested in this sector. And if you look at the past 2 years, just in warehouse capacity, which includes capacity raised by the online e-commerce players as well, about $7 billion has been invested in just building warehouses. And these numbers are quite unbelievable. In fact, in the unlisted space, Delhivery, which is an express logistics company and a 3PL company, they actually became a unicorn. They managed to raise 3,000 crores in the earlier part of this year. Another company which handles trucking logistics raised about 1,100 crores. And there are many other firms in these different categories who have also managed to raise significant amount of money just in the first half of this year. So what is interesting is, I think World Bank maintains this index once every 3 years. It's called the Logistics Performance Index. And this year, Germany has been the number one company, ranked number one in terms of logistics performance index. And this measures basically timeliness of delivery, ability to track efficiently, logistics competence of the entire sector and the supply chain, the value chain, ability to handle international shipments, customs processing, and domestic infrastructure for logistics. So in this case, Germany stands out. And if you look at Germany from 2007 to 2018, they have generally been in the same area and they have not left the top 5 spot. So it's quite an efficient system. Germany is a small country as well, but I think the indications are quite good that Germany's logistics infrastructure is quite robust and healthy. If you look at China, from 2007 to 2018, China has been inching up in terms of its ranking, and right now China is sub 15 generally. Can you hear us? Sorry, all of you? Perfect, thanks. Are you able to see? When it comes to India, what I like to see is that we are actually improving. So from 2007 to 2018, right now we'll be somewhere in the 30s in our ranking compared to other geographies, other countries. But we are actually improving across all the aspects which are important for computing this logistics index. So India definitely has a good future in logistics because all these metrics which are averaged from the industry are trending upwards. But is it really necessary to compare India to all the other companies, all the other countries in logistics sector? I have a mixed answer to this. I think yes, we should compare India because it gives us a chance to benchmark our ability to deliver goods properly from point A to point B against other companies who are doing much better than us. And also it's an aspirational indicator that, okay, we can do better in many areas which are mentioned in this benchmark. But on the other hand, I also think that it is really unfair to calculate India vis-a-vis all the other companies or compare them to other companies, is because we are at a different state of infrastructure. So many countries in the world already have had a very robust infrastructure built, on top of which they have had decades of experience to fine-tune their logistics network. So I think India cannot be compared from that point of view because we are still developing our infrastructure. The policy focus that we have had in logistics lately and even in the past has been more towards building the infrastructure rather than being manpower heavy. But at the same time, we also have socialistic labor policies, so which also affects the sector's growth to some extent. I think many other countries have already solved these issues by private means as well. Because technology adoption in India has been a little slow as compared to other countries. For example, ERP systems or what they call EDI systems in the past were initiated later in India as compared to the developed countries where they were invented. We have had a different nature of logistics business, which is more manual driven rather than now it's electronic everywhere. But we had a lot of time required to shift from a manual system to an online system. And also, like we saw, there's a large amount of unorganized activity in India, which other countries may not have. There may be actually close to 80 to 90% organized activity in many developed countries. So really unfair to compare India. Just to give you a benchmark of how far away we are from some countries. So UPS and FedEx, which are very famous brand names for express delivery companies, they actually own airport terminals which have their own sorting facilities within those terminals. So for instance, if you have seen packages being loaded into a commercial airline when we are boarding into the plane, actually that doesn't happen as much in the US because there are terminals dedicated to logistics and UPS runs their own terminals, FedEx runs their own terminals where they process all the volume of packages that they run through. So about 16 billion packages is what UPS on an average processes in a year. And all of them get processed through their world hub. So if you go on YouTube, and it's actually an interesting video, if you go on YouTube and see how that airport terminal works in sorting and shipping all these packages, the UPS and the FedEx, it's actually quite amazing, the scale of operation. And I think any company in India will wish to actually aspire to become of that size. For example, UPS and FedEx, each of them have 600 airplanes, which carry their stuff across the entire world. Again, we have seen on social media that people even in America complain about bad roads. But just to give you context, everybody complains about bad roads, but America has had a 60-year history of having good roads. So they built their national highways 60 years ago, whereas we are still building and fine-tuning our national highways. And right now we are getting good feedback from people who are driving on the highways that these are really good highways. But This is now. Imagine 60 years later, if we had a good infrastructure, what happens to that? In many of these developed countries, labor unions have had been in existence for at least 100 years. So the Teamsters, which was founded in 1903, is one of the oldest labor unions in the US. And these protect the rights of all the laborers in different segments of the industry, logistics and supply chain being one of them. In India, there's a mix and match of labor policies. We don't know, are there any labor unions to protect certain categories? There is no unified structure for labor unions to come together. At the same time, even the economic policy discussion in the US is extremely matured. So there are some companies which are, some companies aim to consolidate, and then the government says that we should break them up into smaller parts because they become anti-competitive. Whereas in our industry, the industry is so fragmented, I think people will just wish to become a consolidated player in one area, and then probably people get complaints about anti-competitive nature. So we are not even at the level where we can consolidate one particular aspect of the industry and call ourselves to be anti-competitive. So really, these are some of the key examples I think are indicative that we cannot really compare India to other countries. So that saves a lot of time for us. So now we can focus only on India. And what India is basically is a perpetual work in progress, because we have been building our road networks for a long time, dedicated freight corridors for a long time. We are now talking about creating inland waterways, coastal seaways. We are upgrading and building new ports and improving that infrastructure. We are creating new airport terminals. We are now talking about creating multimodal logistics parks. And if you have read in the earlier part of the year, the government came up with this draft logistics policy, and which I think is the entire narrative for the logistics industry for the next 20 years. Whatever works in that document. But I think this is, if any analyst has to write a report, this is a narrative that they should just copy paste words from this. I did the same thing. So I really found two words which I knew already before the report came out were digital portal and GST implementation. But the words I was really amazed to find is data analytics, logistics ecosystem, standardization, logistics e-marketplace, multimodal logistics parks. And I was really amazed that these words were littered around in the entire report in a very understandable context. Because when we think of logistics, we generally think of these basic aspects. You know, one is a warehouse and one is a transportation means. There's an airplane missing, but yeah, you can imagine that. So this is what we generally see as logistics. But actually logistics is far more than that. So I personally think logistics is more like banking and IT, which touches all the sectors in the industry. So if you really want to get the pulse of what is happening in any sector, just talk to the logistics person who is catering to that industry, and you will get a lowdown. Just like you talk to a banker who lends money to that sector, or a IT person who sells software to a company in that sector. So you get a general sense of what's happening. So this is the entrenched nature of logistics in any economy. I want to digress a little bit because I am seeing some interesting trends in logistics companies in India, which are obvious to everyone, but they are now resembling a bit like tech platforms. So we are aware of how technology platforms work, like Amazon, Uber, Facebook, Google. These are all tech platforms. There are some examples of tech platforms. And what they do essentially is they have a user base which uses some service, and they have a business model attached to it, which can either be a B2B business model or a B2C business model. But the main thing that the tech platforms do is they create these 4 features. One is matching users to the service providers. So you've heard Rajiv speak about Uber and how Uber basically made it very efficient to find the taxi for a rider and a rider to connect to the taxi driver. Otherwise, we wouldn't have seen each other at all in the real world. It also provides some liquidity of transactions. In the sense, you now know how to transact on this platform, and you can use it very easily. You can pay for the service very easily. There is absolutely no, it's actually quite seamless. There is no hindrance in using that service. It creates a functionality which we did not think existed before. So before Uber, nobody knew that you could call a cab on your mobile phone with an app. Before Swiggy, nobody thought that we can order food online through a mobile phone. But yeah, it adds a functionality to our lives, at the same time saving time and creating opportunities for others. But the most important thing that tech platforms do is they standardize a lot of features. So once an app is in existence, which allows you to say call a cab, all the other ride-hailing apps need to work in a similar context, because they align the economic incentives of the riders to the incentives of the drivers. So these standards are actually quite amazing. So I don't want to go in too much depth of this. So if you are really interested in learning what these 4 points are. There are a few books, you can probably note it down. So platform scale and platform revolution, followed by matchmakers and modern monopolies. These 4 books will really give you a context of how the modern technology platforms work. But something interesting is happening in India where not only are these companies using these platform technologies to build their business models in logistics space, but they're also able to raise money at breakneck speed and grow these companies at some crazy growth rates. So Blitzscaling is a very interesting book which talks about this mindset of companies where they grow in order to gain market share in a certain area, and then once they become dominant, they can then start unleashing different facets of the business model. Although most of these companies which are growing at these speeds are not traditional logistics companies which have been around in India. These are new companies like Delhivery and others who are growing from a base of a very low base, at the same time started in the past 7 to 8 years. So value chain of logistics with a 3PL kind of a model, which is third party logistics kind of a model, is quite simple. There are shippers, which are us, retailers, B2B, whoever wants to sell packages to each other. Then there's a layer of value-added services, which we'll discuss later. And then there are assets, which are basically utilized to facilitate this service in the offline world. This is very simple to understand because both shippers and the asset owners have very simple goals in life. The shippers want to reduce their logistics cost over a period of time and get reliable delivery. And over a period of time, capacity utilization has to be optimum so that asset owners will get some income from the assets that they have invested in. But the real cream of the cake is here, where a third-party logistics or / fourth-party logistics is where the game actually becomes quite interesting. So to give you a context of how the 3PL industry operates is, so in the beginning we had shippers who had their own enterprise resource planning or ERP systems in which they used to do all their procurement planning. They used to make sure that the raw materials are coming on time, the billing is done properly, the customers are billed on time, the receivables are managed properly. So the entire working capital cycle of an organization was into one silo, which is the company server, and they used to manage how the customers and the suppliers interacted with them. So they would then lease out a truck or lease out a warehouse to manage that inventory in the real world, in the offline world. A third-party logistics provider will provide the same facility to you and without you having to invest in your own software systems. So either they create their own software system or they use an existing software system and manage a network of assets, including warehouses and transportation equipment, in order to make sure that what your logistics needs are taken care of. So they become a part of your supply chain instead of you managing that supply chain yourself. It's a form of outsourcing of one of your not core activities, but a side activity which was important for your business. Now these 3PL companies have become smarter over a period of time. These softwares have taken advantage of cloud computing technologies. They have taken advantage of newer tools, newer sensors. They are taking advantage of mobile technology, and they provide real-time analytics of the entire network. So for example, if you are a company selling spare parts to an automobile manufacturer, you don't need to invest in your own ERP. You are part of this 3PL network, which has been hired by the automobile company. The automobile company will give an order. The order is generated in the 3PL system, and you will get an intimation that this particular item needs to be shipped at a particular time. So it has to be ready, manufactured in your godown or warehouse. So once the manufacturing is completed, they will make sure that this item is available. They will log that this item is available for shipping, and then some asset will come and pick it up and then deliver it to the customer. And this happens seamlessly across the entire annual supply chain cycle that the business will have. And none of these things had to be planned or organized by either the vendor or the customer. And the data analytics of everything, that how efficient this particular mode of transport was for shipping this particular item, or can we optimize this route, need not be bothered about by the customer or the vendor. All this has been taken care of by the 3PL, and they will keep on optimizing based on the data that they have. This sounds very obvious now because technologies are around us and we see them happening. So previously Amazon used to take 3 days to deliver. Now sometimes they also deliver in 1 day. Now we know that there is some efficiency built into the system because they have data about where to situate the warehouse, where to locate their distribution centers, and where the customers are located. So they will plan their entire inventory accordingly and keep some stock in different parts in different warehouses. Now this is only possible because they have data which has been intelligently used to calculate how much time and resources can be saved by making sure product is closer to the customer. And imagine this data was also available with the previous companies. So all the old logistics companies which we know of by name, these companies also had data. But the problem was systems had not matured enough to take advantage of statistical tools which can then throw up some very interesting numbers. And with the advent of machine learning, artificial intelligence, all these programs can automatically give you recommendations which you can test with your heuristic knowledge, on the ground knowledge. Other interesting aspects that logistics companies can benefit from with a third party player is, for example, if you're a retailer and you don't have an online presence, but you want to have an online presence, you can actually allow the logistics player to design a website and a portal for you. And you can do the customer portal at the same time. You can also do cart management. So any orders that you receive or any items that you have to show, all the inventory of items maintained, you don't have to worry about those. The 3PL player will manage everything. So for example, a company called Shopify, or you may have also heard of Infibeam's business, which is in the same category, which allows you to set up your own online store. These stores do the same thing. They, on the back end, they provide the data analytics for you, making sure that inventory and your purchase system and payment gateways work just fine. They also create a billing software, and in the physical world, they also help you sort, do the inventory management, and even sometimes pick up the product from you, the manufacturer, pack it and ship it on your behalf to the customer. In many cases, even reverse logistics, if the package is incorrect or the item is damaged, they will also manage the reverse logistics, where the customer sends that item back to the manufacturer. Now imagine all these services, if you had to do on your own, you had to have either your own software systems in place or your own manpower in place, or you have to lease all these assets by yourself. And you have to maintain this entire network. Whereas the 3PL provider allows you to maintain this with a complete hands-off experience. So you can focus on running your business and growing your business. But it is even more interesting when ancillary business to this, which is a 4PL business, which is a fourth party logistics, is when you allow the logistics partner to actually become part of your supply chain. So not only does the partner provide you this, but even within a sub-assembled product, they can actually help you navigate from one item to the other and reorganize your entire manufacturing system. So, for example, Mahindra Logistics has this facility which they provide to some of the customers called in-factory logistics, where they will retool the factory and rearrange the layout in such a way that the logistics of the network coming of raw materials coming in and the finished products coming out becomes more efficient, and they're already plugged into the supply chain of, sorry, the 3PL solution of Mahindra. So on the 3PL side, we saw that the software really drives everything. But on the other side, we have these funds who are also raising capital. So, for example, in the past 4 years, from 2014 to 2018, about 17,000 crores of non-core investments have happened in the warehousing space. So these are basically funds, private equity funds who have raised funds just to invest in warehouses. And I was very surprised by some of these numbers, because these are not small numbers considering size in which Indian warehouses are constructed. So traditional warehouse in India used to be in tens of thousands of square feet, whereas some of the amounts, if you see, actually merits to a lakh square feet and above in many areas. So this data is basically compiled from Knight Frank's report, which came out last year. But what is more interesting is to see that a lot of these are very close to some of the city centers. And there's a very explicit expectation of equity IRR that the companies are assuming that they will earn over a period of time. And this always surprises me, because I will show the chart later to you about how much returns companies have actually earned in terms of past 10 years of ROE, say on the 10th year versus what they earn today. And I'm always amazed that why are some companies so positive that they will earn as high as 28% of IRR from their activity on an annualized basis. But it's quite obvious that all these clusters of logistics and warehouses that are being constructed are very close to where the customer density is. So it might be to facilitate e-commerce transactions, or it might be to help other FMCG companies manage some of their goods. In India, I think the 3PL industry, about 2/3 of it is cornered by the automobile industry, because they have been the early adopters. So right from the 1980s, when the just-in-time technology was out there, automobile industry has been on the forefront of logistics, whereas they have been trying to optimize by using new technology every time to make sure products are available in stores on time. So it's natural to have India, which has a large automobile manufacturing base, to have logistics as a large part, but these are mostly pharma, FMCG, at the same time e-commerce kind of operations where you have very specific needs from all these customers. But looking at these numbers, I always felt that we are actually in a gold rush. If you have a few crores of rupees, just drop into a warehouse somewhere near Bombay, and probably you will make a lot of money. But on calculating how much costs actually are there, it's not a gold rush, not so fast. Because a lot of times we know that any warehouse requires a huge amount of land parcel, which actually is a big problem in any of the metro cities, and it's a perennial problem. It's not like problem has come up today. We don't have contiguous land parcels available near metros because of lots of reasons historically. What happens is, even for constructing a warehouse, you need to have specific FSI in order to build multi-level warehouses, or even to have specific construction standards which are important for your foreign customers. So for example, we saw that there was 1 lakh crore of FDI in logistics business. Out of that, there are some specific needs from these foreign customers, foreign companies. For example, requirements like a warehouse grade. Now, a grade A warehouse has to have a parking facility for trucks, has to have a recreation area for all the drivers who will drive the trucks and come and go at different times. They will also require you to have automated tools and technologies, even robotics in some areas where it is too dangerous for human beings to operate because temperatures can be too high and may not be suitable for a normal human being to work for longer hours in that area. At the same time, even handling of weights. So if you can optimize weight handling by a robot, it's actually quite easy rather than having two human beings trying to pick using a forklift or something. At the same time, you need to have safety requirements like fire and other safety requirements or security checks, which if you add all these things together, you actually have taken away 40% of your possible leasing capacity of a warehouse. Now, in that 60% capacity, the amount of money that you have invested needs to earn that kind of rent per square feet in order to give you justifiably that return on equity that you're expecting from that investment. What is interesting is, if you look at all the warehouses which are constructed in India, only about 5% will be compliant to the grade A requirements. So almost all of them are still living in that past with suboptimal return on equity that they're earning, whereas the most talked about names are generally mentioned in the reports, which is easier to report a higher number to encourage more investment. But what about transportation assets? So this has been a very simple business. So I think whenever trucks were started to be sold in India, this business has been in existence, and the business models also are probably that old. I would say 50, 60-year old, where a logistics player who does not have the balance sheet to buy all the trucks that they can will own a small amount of trucks or vehicles for transportation, which will help them to take the overflow of demand that is there. At the same time, they will have these leased partners, small trucking fleets or small shipping freight forwarders who will carry the capacity for that person. And eventually, the primary focus has been to make sure that the capacity utilization of all these assets is optimum, which gives at least 50, 60%, north of 50, 60%, which is a decent number to have in the average year. But at the same time, managing fuel efficiency, managing cost of labor. As we saw, this is an extremely labor-intensive business. So if you've seen any truck operator carrying a lot of goods from one point to other, you will see that there is one driver, there are 2, 3 people already involved. So each truck will carry number of people in order to manage that. But with a lot of automation and machinery being used, you can also reduce that to a number of people. And also that people traveling for a long time on trucks has been a problem in our country, where a lot of communicable diseases and all have been spread because of truck drivers being on the road for a long time, going back home, not having family lives. So these are people who generally don't get insurance. So these are lakhs and lakhs of people who work across the country driving the stuff that we use, have not been able to enjoy a dignified existence. But that has been in the past. So a lot of things are changing. So for example, a company like Rivigo has been trying to create this Uber kind of a system where the biggest problem for asset utilization in this industry is that a truck goes from point A to point B, which is completely full, but the truck, when it comes back, may not have the same load to carry back from point B to point A, which actually the cost of traveling is the same, but the amount of money that they will make in the return journey is half or sometimes nil. The truck has to maybe sometimes come empty as well. Now imagine one driver driving it from point A to point B and from point B back to point A. It might take certain amount of time. And based on distances, so some statistics were mentioned in the government's report is that in India, the longer distance logistics is also managed by road. Whereas this longer distance means 500 kilometers and longer distance is managed still by road. So in most of the countries, north of 500 kilometers are managed by rail networks. So India, we use about 20%, 25% of rail networks for long distance logistics, whereas the remaining is used by roads because it is more efficient to reach the last mile as per our previous business model. But companies like Rivigo and Blackbug are trying to use data analytics in a slightly more intelligent way to make sure that you create a Uber-like system where people know that if a truck is going from point A to point B, somebody else in the network will definitely find some stuff to put in that truck to go back from point B to point A. And these are very easy to say, but actually it's a technological challenge. How do you make sure that you build a network large enough to have all these suppliers and shippers come together, and then you create the right set of incentives so that the drivers will be able to enjoy a dignified life as well. So in fact, they have a patented system called Relay as a Service, which is actually quite interesting. If you get a chance to read about it, do read about it. So what they have done is a relay network where a driver only drives a truck for 200 kilometers and then takes a break and hands over the truck to another driver of that same network, who may be employed with Rivigo or maybe a partner working with Rivigo, like a Uber driver is a partner of Uber. And then that driver takes a truck from that location to the further 200-kilometer distance, and so on till the distance is complete. So imagine a driver driving 200 kilometers. When the truck comes back from point B to point A, again a 200-kilometer distance might be required to drive. So in 400 kilometers, a driver is back home on the same day, which is quite amazing for a truck driver to enjoy that kind of a lifestyle. Of course, these models are extremely small right now and not at scale, but these companies, the way that they are growing and the way that the networks are expanding, it's quite amazing to see that what they have achieved, which something which could have been easily achieved, say maybe 20 years back by some of the more established players. There's a slide over here which I somehow don't know. So Container Corporation is a public sector company. It's a very interesting business. It's in the monopoly, in the rail monopoly business, where they carry containers from point A to point B through container freight stations, which are basically ports for trains to merge and load and unload containers over there. But now the containers which are talking about, shipping containers, the large containers we see on ships which carry goods. But in software, there are other containers. So if you look at Concor and what the commentary they have been giving in the past, they sound more like a technology company than a logistics company. Because constantly in their commentary, they have been talking about data analytics, trying to construct warehouse management systems which will consolidate the entire network, create their own 3PL kind of a technology on top of that. All these things are extremely difficult to hear from a company which has a traditional business model, which has been operating for the past 60, 70 years in the exact same way. So it's quite surprising that even the old companies are not falling behind in this, but at the same time growing enthusiastically with the other industries. These are really noteworthy case studies. If you have time, you can go through them. But from this, I just really wanted to see that is this just a trailer or is this the entire movie? Because ultimately it has to boil down to numbers. Somebody has to make money out of it. You can't say that you are scaling and you lose thousands of crores in a year as an industry. So there's a nice book I always like to reread. It's a book by Aswath Damodaran. Aswath Damodaran, if people who don't know, he's a numbers guy. He creates these very elaborate financial models. He's a professor, so he uses all financial knowledge that he has to create these elaborate models. But of course, with basis to reality. He doesn't just create these models out of academic interest. So he wrote this very interesting book because he found it very hard to convert the understanding of numbers to a narrative. Sometimes you put a number in a DCF valuation model and you get an answer which is a decimal accurate answer, and you tend to believe because you have put in so much effort in constructing that model that this answer might be correct. But does that mean that the answer is correct? There might be a longer term story or narrative which is required to put into the model which cannot be quantified in financial terms. So he tries to, in this book, tries to give examples of his past valuations and how he has been able to improve upon the opinion that he had with the basis of new data coming in. So he gives some examples of companies he had tracked in the past, like Ferrari, Uber, whose financial statements were available, and he builds this model. And as new data comes in every year, he updates these models. So it's a fantastic thought process to see, because in a changing industry, all you can do is get data from the changes that are happening in the industry, put it in your financial models to see if your valuation still makes sense or not. So I did the same thing. So except for the star mark companies, most of these companies have a 10-year operating as well as a listing history. So this is a very randomly chosen biased list. Some of the companies I have been tracking in the logistics space for the past few years. And I was really surprised that, okay, there is sales growth over a 10-year period. There is some bad growth over a 10-year period. Not respectable, but still okay. There is some asset growth, which is a good sign the business has been able to utilize. Since most of the logistics companies don't own their assets, we discussed that assets are generally owned by other people who are leased as per requirement. Generally, if you look at the asset turnovers, they're quite high for some of these businesses. The ones which are low are because there has been legacy investments in the business, which are giving the asset a lower number right now. But over a period of time, you will see that the businesses will evolve into a asset light model. But I was very surprised to see that most of these companies do not earn a return on equity of more than 16, 17%. And over a long period of time, there have been, okay, small periods of time where they have earned in 20s or 30s. But generally, I would assume that the companies who are so efficient and have been around for a long time, assets have been depreciated, uh, your business models are entrenched, your market shares are available for you to take advantage of, and yet they have not been able to grow. Incidentally, some of the express delivery companies, even in the US, like FedEx or UPS, even those companies have had a difficulty in raising prices over a period of time. And you're seeing incumbent companies, for example, Amazon, now starting their own package delivery service. In India, we know that Amazon delivers at everybody's home. But in some of the developed countries, they have started to implement that system just now. And most of these companies are, I mean, the logistics index itself is not a large number of companies, but some of these companies are very well known companies who have had at least 25, 30 years of operating history. So they have seen the entire transformation of technology, and I think most of these are also auto industry heavy businesses. Some are technology companies where Reddington, for example, is a company which is a distributor of electronic goods. So any mobile phone we buy, any laptop we buy, chances are it has gone through either Reddington's warehouse or a Ingram Micro, which is the largest competitor of Reddington in India. And for every company in this list, there are thousands of companies which are of smaller scale in the MSME space who are operating their small niche localized courier businesses. What I found interesting is, so for example, some of the groups like Mahindra, who have, I think, probably more than 100 companies in their network, this company has been spun off in 2007 as an independent third-party logistics company, and they realized that this company can independently grow without the help of Mahindra as a client. But generally, based on how industry trends have been globally as well, most companies in this industry have only thrived because they have some anchor client who has been consistently giving them business over a long period of time, which protected their cash flows, which allowed them to invest in technology and grow. And then they were able to use those investments to attract other clients. But again, as it is surprising, most of these companies do not earn a decent return on equity over a long period of time. But what is also interesting is all of them are debt free, net debt free, which is quite amazing because this industry requires temporary investments in assets and working capital, which can be managed easily through banks or your own internal accruals. Again, market cap movement, if you see, over a 10-year period, the companies who have been around have not delivered that kind of great return in terms of CAGR returns. Star marks are companies who do not have a 10-year operating history or a 10-year stock history. So for example, the last name over here is Delivery. I was hoping somebody would pick up on it. So Delivery again these numbers are from 2015 to 2018. And these numbers are quite phenomenal, the kind of growth that they have shown. And even the market valuation that was last quoted for this business, based on the first funding round till the latest funding round, it has been a 34% CAGR for the first investor who came in, Delivery. But the comparison I wanted to make is the growth rates of companies like Delivery, who are the upcoming technology first or cloud first logistics companies, or who came through the e-commerce route and learned all the technology of data analysis and which are applying now to the traditional logistics industry. These companies are generally seeing a much faster growth because they are able to modify and adapt to the different business realities quite fast. But the underlying business has been the same. You're basically creating this 3PL system or a 4PL system, and you're leasing these transportation assets and warehouses based on your requirement. Of course, there is no ROE because the losses are infinite. But this is what I found very interesting. Generally the market is a little gloomy. There is no growth, there is no demand. People are talking about all sorts of scenarios where nothing is growing. But when I look at the valuations of these companies on a trailing 12-month basis, I don't see there is any pessimism in this sector, except for a few companies who have different business models. I actually see valuations, despite having these kind of ROE numbers over a period of time, valuations are quite rich in this industry. And mind you, these valuations are lower today as compared to what they were a few months back, but still they are high, from my point of view at least. The valuation anyway is a opinion of people, but I still believe that whatever people talk about these growth not being there in the industry, I don't see this in the numbers at all. The market expectations are clear that these kind of companies do have a future and they will continue to grow. Perhaps, again, what I found interesting is Delhivery, which became a unicorn this year. It's a 12,000 crore business, whereas Blue Dart, which has been around for I don't know how many decades, is only 5,000 crore market cap. Of course, they earn profits, but still. In fact, in many categories, some of the logistics companies are overtaking in terms of volume and sales growth of the existing incumbent players, which I don't think they had imagined it will happen. So I think now that we have established, we don't need to worry about growth not being there, because logistics is a very important part of the entire supply chain of many industries. And if they are being valued this way, I think we don't need to worry about other industries not growing over a period of time. But some things that definitely need to keep a lookout for, all these names that we see, some of them are not 3PL companies. They still have those old asset-based models which work in some niche areas, have done very well in some profitable niche areas. But broadly, when they compete against the 3PL kind of business models, they are lacking today. So most of these businesses across the globe as well are converging into a 3PL, 4PL kind of a logistics as a service business model. And with this business models evolving, valuations need to be also tweaked. So that's why you find technology first companies are able to raise a lot of money from the market based on the same promise of evolving business models and converging faster and taking market share from incumbent players. Also, competitors in many industries are integrating vertically. So for example, you might have a e-commerce player whose main job was to just run the e-commerce business. They now realize that, okay, to optimize and figure out how much will it really cost if I integrate my entire supply chain myself? What if I lease a warehouse on my own? What if I lease trucks on my own? Because I already have data of where my customers are, where my orders come from. I will try to integrate and create my own supply chain system and figure out if this software will give me better results than a third-party player. So they are actually competing with their own vendors in some areas where they find it more efficient to work with their own network. So I've also seen Amazon using other third-party players to deliver products to you, and they also have their own people deliver products to you. We don't know how that system works, but both systems can coexist together. So in e-commerce, it is very obvious, but in some of the other industries, it is not so obvious because we don't get to see these day-to-day interactions with the entire network. And what is happening, we saw in the draft logistics policy and even the government's push on creating these long-range infrastructure investments. We are seeing that wherever we keep track of these infrastructure investments, we will see some offshoots of companies doing better in that area. Some companies who are dependent on road traffic, they will do better in some areas at some point in time. Some people who are dependent on the rail infrastructure to come up, they might do better at some point in time. So I think it's a long range story. Like a famous philosopher said, party to abhi shuru hui hai. So we'll have to wait and watch as to what the industry might do in the future. Thank you for your patient listening. I would love to take questions if you have any. I know it was a dull and very dry topic, but I think I find logistics to be an infinitely interesting topic because it touches every single aspect that we do in our day-to-day life.
Hi Ronak, thanks
Hi.
for the presentation. I have one question, like when GST came, there was a lot of emphasis like the logistic companies would benefit in terms of improving the supply chain management, etc. But it didn't play out. And what do you think GST has had an impact on the logistic companies' business model? And in suppose 2 or 3 years when GST is fully on the go, and what do you think can be the future dynamics from that?
So this number is before the GST implementation actually happened, but a lot of third-party investment funds are actually putting money into constructing warehouses. We have also seen 1 lakh crore of FDI happening in the industry. We have $7 billion in the past 2 years being poured into constructing warehouses. So there is a reason why this money is put in. So for example, if you are part of the organized ecosystem to begin with, you are anyway GST compliant from day one. You have to be. You cannot afford not to be GST compliant from day one. If you are part of that network, you will benefit if the entire value chain that you are working with also is part of GST. Logistics, the nature of the business is that there have been a lot of these smaller players which are organized because of a system available of leasing. But there have never been larger entities who have managed, say, more than 50 fleets of trucks or a large number of human beings under one organized company. That has always been done informally by the logistics companies themselves. So because of that, the smaller businesses who used to make money in the shadow somewhere here and there by not being tax compliant fully, by not following labor practices which are expected from some of the clients, they were getting away with excess profits in the system. Over a period of time, when that cash economy was disrupted, when GST came in and you had to comply now, if you had to work with a bigger partner, most of those extra profits which they used to earn did not flow through the system to them. Now what they realize is it worthwhile in staying in this business, or is it easy to just complain and shut down the business and let somebody else handle it? That temporary disruption, which we have set our scales to a very short term of GST implementation. Let's give it 5 to 10 years and see when everybody or most of the network is fully compliant, does it really benefit? Because previously each state used to have their own tax laws, and every time you crossed a state border, you had to comply to that, and there used to be a nightmare in terms of managing all these invoices and bills properly. And people used to then find ways to skim money off the top in the basis of this. So now it's becoming much easier. Everything is online. Trucks can flow through seamlessly. The only glitch is traffic, which nobody can cure. But the problem over here was trucks not passing at the rate from one state to the other, or goods not traveling seamlessly. Now if you can do that, you can have regional hubs, regional warehouses, can have larger land parcels in places where there is not too much population density, but these are areas which are closer to dense populated areas. For example, Bhiwandi is a good example. If you go to Bhiwandi, most of Bhiwandi is concentrated in small parts of buildings and habitation, but a large swath of land is just available, and there are these huge fulfillment centers and warehouses of e-commerce players or even other brands which have come up there. And they cater to Bhiwandi and that other area of a 50-kilometer radius from there, which is quite a good way of organizing your warehouses. But imagine doing that at a larger scale, where a state warehouse becomes a fulfillment center for that region, which connects to smaller fulfillment centers, which then connects to local delivery points. All those things are now possible. At least people can imagine and execute them today because GST exists. And I think organized players will definitely keep benefiting more from it because they are anyway compliant. So all these ROE numbers we are seeing today are in that overhang of the old system versus the new system coming in. I think we give it 5 to 10 years period of time, you will see a lot of benefit coming to the larger players.
Ronak, that was excellent presentation. One question, there's a slowdown going on in the auto sector, and trucks are, I believe, very badly hit looking at the numbers. And there's a WhatsApp message doing the rounds that the reason why the trucks sales are so much down is that earlier apparently it took 8 days from Bombay to Delhi at the Octroi Naka and this and that, and now after GST it takes only 2 days. And therefore the requirement of trucks is down by almost 70%. So you have any thoughts on this, or is this message actually true in any manner, and how does it impact this?
I think as economic activity picks up, some of the underutilized assets will get utilized. That is for sure. We don't know when that optimum level of economic activity will happen. So utilization also improves. So if, like you said, the truck has come back sooner than expected. Now there is nothing else to take there from this point to the other point. Maybe the orders will be filled by new additional demand which will come in that nearby neighborhood. So we are seeing most of these companies growing at quite crazy. So if you read commentary from all the e-commerce players, if you read commentary from all logistics players, I have never seen them talk about severe slowdown in the way other people talk about. Of course, there will be pockets of slowdown in different areas. Like if you have stuff to channel, like putting inventory in the channel far more than desired, then of course the dealer will wait for the inventory to clear, and then the new inventory will be taken off. Then you will have to shut your plant till that inventory is cleared, which is okay, which is natural part of managing inventory. Now how and when that demand picks up is a different story altogether. But I think by making it more efficient, you're actually reducing on the human aspect of cost, the fuel wastage that was happening in the past. And these small improvements here and there will actually make the system better. I think it's a good thing that we are facing this slowdown today. Now we will know which businesses are actually resilient of all these slowdown characteristics.
Question is, in the last 5-6 years, there's been an explosion of internet in India. There's been an explosion of internet bandwidth, explosion in penetration, and the costs have crashed. Now looking 10 years ahead, I mean, on one side you've got China, Alibaba type of operations which are massive. Looking at what you've said today, don't you think something like this could happen in India in a big way, where these companies will look very small today? I mean, they could grow 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times in the future because of these basic, and of course the physical infrastructure which you very nicely mentioned, which the present government on land, on water, on air, and all possible transport methods, which they are trying to improve, which has not happened in the last 70 years. All that integrated thing, don't you think it will give a big boost to this?
I am of the same view that it is definitely going to give a big boost, and this is not a view which I personally own. Even the market believes it, based on the valuations that these companies are quoting at. Now clearly we saw that these companies have not been able to earn optimal return on equity over a long period of time, and yet the market says that these businesses are equally valuable because there is this large runway and possibility of capturing a much larger market. How fast or how soon that can happen, we don't know, but it's definitely possible because all these things are driven by software. There is beyond a point you don't require any physical infrastructure to enable any of these business models. Tomorrow you and I can start a local 3PL company which caters to a local niche on a software basis, and we can scale that based on our cash flow generation over a period of time, which is what most of these companies have done in the past. Now, if we are savvy enough, we can tap into the venture capital market and raise more funds and scale our ambitions and hire more people, grow that business much faster, which also has happened in many of these companies. So I have only mentioned one illustrative example from non-listed space, but there are thousands of companies in the non-listed space who are at the fringes of doing something interesting with the data that they have about logistics network that they are running, and based on that they are scaling. Now we don't know how many will survive because most of these companies run on vapor. There is no profit, there are no cash flows which are actually funding their operations. They keep on generating more rounds of funding to generate money to fund their day-to-day operations plus the new businesses they are growing. Now just like Amazon did in the early days, where you saw that the company generated a lot of cash flow, but you did not see economic profits flow through in terms of the P&L accounting profits, which is okay. But the more important thing is, can you generate enough cash flows to survive in one industry, which will then fund, plus some funds raised from outside, your other activities which you're trying to create. So many of these businesses are dynamic. So a company started as an e-commerce warehouse business is now a 3PL company for express delivery, as well as a 3PL company with other industries as well, which they would have never imagined in their initial funding round that they will be doing. But because the opportunity existed, like we said, there are so many unorganized players over here. Any unorganized player's market share you capture, it is your market because you are organizing it to some extent. So that 42% number might actually look inverted, where it will be 60% organized and 40% unorganized over the next 10 years, probably even faster if everything just falls into place. I think the expectations are clearly stacked in this argument that this will happen.
There is only one very serious obstacle. Unlike China, where they have one language, in India, English penetration is less than 7%.
Yes.
Hindi, I mean, we know recently in the media, all the language this thing has come. So I think that is going to be a big bottleneck probably, and
which
eventually
has always been.
And it may break up into the regional, players with the regional languages. If that comes, I think the growth could be very fast, because English has this big disadvantage.
It's possible, yeah.
What do you have to say on the cold storage, warehousing and logistics? Because there are a lot of now dairy sector, which last time we had. So a lot of value-added products are being sold in India. Also agri products. So how the growth and how is the penetration?
So most of these numbers which we see are actually encompassing those numbers as well. So even cold storage businesses are growing at the same capacity and warehouse deployment as other companies are growing. So there is clearly growth in that segment as well. So I'm just giving a broader logistics sector overview, but clearly the growth numbers we see in the sector are also inclusive of cold storage companies doing well. So cold warehouses plus cold transportation, both.
Ronak, I just wanted to know, in terms of the warehouse space, the crazy numbers in terms of people buying it out.
Yeah.
Has you done any study which says what are the returns like? Because I suggest this warehouse which are being constructed, they are already getting booked in terms of the space wise.
Yeah.
One player being indoor space.
Yes.
They have been aggressively adding. Any idea in terms of what are the return metrics, if you can share, if you know anything about it?
Sadly, there are no numbers in public domain, and conversations that we generally have with people, we don't get actual numbers because none of these are at optimal capacity also. They're growing, but they are planned for the future expansion. So most of them are not fully utilized as well. So you will not see the actual return numbers till the utilization numbers are above optimal levels that they want.
And is it safe to assume that the warehouse get a subsidy from the government for the?
So it has been given an infrastructure status. So I think for fundraising it might be possible.
Hi Ronak, wonderful presentation once again.
Sorry, where you are? Sorry. Thank you.
Just a question. It is very clear that these companies have really huge expenses to bear, but apart from evolving business models and use of technology, yes, that can we can assume that can help it reduce expenses over longer time. But what apart from these aspects can help them create or increase the net profit margins?
Logistics as a business is not a very high margin business. Hey, thank you. It's not a very high margin business to begin with. What is more important is the ROE that the companies can generate. And ROE is a factor of three things. One is the profit margin, asset turnover, and the leverage that you use in order to fund the operations. So most of these companies will generally tend to have higher ROE the moment they start getting volumes, and they can optimize the entire lease network that they have. So I'm not too worried about the net profit margin of many of these companies. In fact, if they're earning very high net profit margins, that particular area in which they're operating is extremely susceptible to new competitors coming in and destroying that net profit margin, which happens quite ruthlessly in this business. You actually aren't doing anything special in this area because no matter how great a software you design or a great technology you use, you might say you are having GPS located trucks everywhere, you know exactly where everybody is. And many companies are advertising these features and they're giving them away, saying that these are generally hygiene factors required for the industry to operate. And if these companies are saying that these technologies are given away for free at the same cost at which other companies are providing a non-technology enabled network, I think the matter is clear that people will have to keep investing for a long time to get at parity with the technology first guys who are existing. The profit margins I don't think matter that much. If you make decent profit and utilize the assets that you have and use leverage to a little bit extent, you will do well in ROE terms, which is what the industry has been. So, I mean, logistics is an enabling industry. It should not make too much money just by being the business operator over there. Like banks, they should not make too much profits by lending money because that's a very commoditized business.
Ronak, Priyank here. Ronak, among the players listed over here, any of the player that you would like to call off that yes, this is a player which has a very bright future as a business model?
So like I said, business models are converging towards that 3PL, 4PL kind of thing. I actually don't know how these companies will look 5 years, 10 years down the line. So for example, express delivery will look the same because it's a very easy to understand business. But if other companies are eating into that area and some of the lucrative clients like financial companies and all go to some of these newer age express delivery companies, you don't know how this business will then evolve and adapt because they clearly have the cash flows to modify their business strategy. But in the future, in the developed countries also, wherever these companies have been existing and facing competition from newer players, they haven't been able to modify because there's not much to do beyond that. So for example, every package that UPS delivers, it actually hurts their profit margin if they slow down the package to some extent. So they are optimized to the hilt. They cannot optimize beyond a certain point. These are extremely well-oiled machines. And if you want to change a business model midstream, it's like applying a handbrake in a 100 km/h car while driving that car. So for many companies, I'm actually not sure how they will look 5 years down the line, because many of these areas are now becoming blurred. Somebody who was an express delivery player suddenly becomes a 3PL company. Somebody who was a technology-enabled company in a very niche area starts doing something in warehousing. We have no idea what is happening. And the rate at which companies are raising money in this non-listed space, I'm actually skeptical to even see these valuations sustaining for a long period of time. So many companies did have higher valuations a few months ago. Of course, the market is corrected, so even they have been affected. But these still are rich, considering the kind of upheaval that is happening in the sector. We'll take some questions from the Delhi audience.
Yeah, hi Ronak. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
I have two questions. The first one being sort of a macro question. What's the best way to play the e-commerce theme right now in the listed space in India? Like, is it IT or logistics or FMCG? And do we have some IT company like Atsalya Kale, which is primarily into this space? This is the first question. And second question is that we are seeing Blackstone and other private equity players investing in these companies like Gateway and All Cargo. So does this give any confidence that these guys will have any effect on these businesses, and would there be a like overhauling of this business?
So to answer your first question, I don't think there is any clear-cut business model available to take part into the e-commerce space in India. There may be smaller companies here and there who might be sellers on the e-commerce platforms, but I don't know about the track record of these companies to survive over a long period of time or even sustain that business model. At the same time, there are plenty of companies available globally. You can easily buy those companies' shares if you like a business model of any company over there. For your second question, although there are investments made by private equity guys, they are specific and earmarked towards asset creation in certain areas. So, for example, a Gateway investment of Blackstone was for a rail operation that they got out of recently. So there are these asset-specific investments that keep happening, which we don't know what are the terms of these transactions. So there might be an implicit ROE given to some of these transactions, or there might be actual business outcome-specific transactions, which are not visible from the outside. So although I see that there's a lot of excitement and other companies are investing, we'll have to wait and watch different categories of industries and see how the companies evolve. So there are companies in the list that I mentioned were over 20 years old, but yet haven't been able to manage a sustainable 10-year ROE of more than 10%. And I find that very surprising, because these companies don't lack the experience. They just found that the business models changed too rapidly, and newer players took out all the efficiency from the network that they were organizing. A lot of times we believe that unorganized sector is a natural target for organized players, but actually inefficient organized players sometimes become a better target for newer, higher efficient organized players. That's just my view. So I keep a watch on this space, but I have not been able to have the courage to put any money on any of the logistics companies. I like the space, I keep tracking it.
And about the first question, is there any IT company which is into logistics, and talking about 3PL and 4PL, a company which is focusing on the sector?
Most companies have some solution for logistics players, so it's not like nobody is participating, but they will be part of a portfolio of services that they provide anyway. So you will have to buy the entire company. Exception of Atsalya Kale, which you mentioned, which is a very specific airline operating systems kind of a company which they have for booking. But that is a very niche business model, and it's very hard to track how that business actually works. Sitting here in India, we don't know how the contracts are negotiated, how the business is actually there, how will it compete with other similar softwares in that same area. It's a decent business which makes tremendous amounts of profits.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yeah, no more questions.
Cool. We'll take some questions from Bangalore on WhatsApp.
So there is one question from Srinidhi, who is from Bangalore. It's a broader question in terms of the supply chain management industry. So how have the changes in the businesses and industries affected the flexibility and profitability of these supply chain management companies, thinking in terms of customer expectations, labor, physical assets, sourcing, etc.?
So in the shorter term, they have worsened in their business performance, because they had to scale in different directions. So there won't be a single business model which they were following. So For example, if somebody was purely in 3PL and suddenly they saw that somebody else was entering in that space and trying to woo the same customers that they had no option but to double down on the investment, or in many cases just shut the business down and move to a slightly more lucrative area. So like I said, in the past, a lot of the unorganized space was organized informally by most of these supply chain companies. So in the auto industry, which is the exception to most of these, because they have organized themselves for a long time. Like I said, in the 80s, since the 80s, they have upped their game and made sure that they are at the forefront of technology and logistics usage. So those companies have done much better who are catering to auto industry, and it's evident in the cash flows and the growth of these companies. But the companies which are catering to broader industries, they have had extreme upheavals in terms of being able to use assets properly, being able to use manpower at the required rates. And when the competition increases, for example, if other companies are getting funded and trying to expand their operations, the competition for the same amount of assets to be leased and same amount of labor to be hired also increases. So you will suddenly see spikes in labor markets where you wouldn't find people unless you are willing to pay more than what is actually a fair price to pay for that particular labor or even for the particular asset. So it's very hard to say with a conclusive saying that, okay, this is not worked out, but most of these business models are in transition, and we need to understand these valuations and cash flows from that point of view. That what we see today may not be the numbers we see 5-10 years from now. Maybe better or worse, we don't know. Wow, I think we finished in time after a long time. So thank you guys. If you have any more questions, we can discuss over dinner. Thank you.
Whenever things got rough, I always remember what my father used to say.
Running a business does test a man, my son. There are ups and downs, glorious highs, and sometimes a low that leaves you feeling defeated.
The character of a man and the character of a business are not very different, are they?
Yes. But when the chips are down, we must stand up, dust ourselves off, and motor on.
Volatility. It's a funny thing. It makes you question yourself and wonder if you've made all the right decisions.
Sure, you can question some of your decisions, but stay steadfast on your goals.
Dad always said, there are no shortcuts and no quick profits.
There are no free lunches, are there? There is only one
right way.
At PPFAS, we think like Rahul and his father. That volatility is a fact of running a business. And buying equity shares is like owning a part of that business. We use value investing principles to manage your money. This means we invest in the right businesses at reasonable prices and for a longer term.
PPFAS Mutual Fund. There's only one right way.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.